Hey man, how you doing? Kitchen sink. I'm doing okay. Glad to see you here even just for a little bit. I appreciate you stopping by. It's very kind of you. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, evening. It's technically evening here. It's 5 o'clock. 17:05. So much stuff going on in this world. It's just sad. The deluge of just horrible things just keeps coming. It's insane. How's your week been going? We've got Monday off for Labor Day, I think, or something like that. So that's nice. I've got, 4-day weekend, because I normally have Friday off. Probably spend Friday recording some Warhammer 40k Battle Sector videos tomorrow. Since the child will be at work, child will be at school, so I'll have a lot of quiet time to get some stuff done. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. Plus I have to get up early to get her up and going, which is gonna be a thing, because my body sleeps 10 hours. I go to bed at 10 and I get up at 8. That's the way it goes. So I have to go to bed at 9 tonight, and hopefully my alarm will get me up at 7 to help. Well, actually, I have it set for 6:50, so hopefully I can get up by 7 to get her up and going. Well, it's been okay. Monday, bank holiday, was a nightmare, though. Work was rammed. Oh, that sucks. Holiday for some, not for everyone, right? Yikes. Well, so what was... So I'm assuming you're not working at the bank, but why was your work so busy? I had a friend who just had a heart attack a minor heart attack early this morning. Yesterday. So he's just getting probably out of the hospital today. So hopefully he's going to be okay overall. Some Mondays are class. It's holidays, not sure. Yeah, for us, bank holidays are typically like there's some that are federal level that not everyone gets. Like we just started. I work for a county government, and we just started getting bank holidays too. Like Martin Luther King Jr. Day was a bank holiday that banks took off, and other, similar organizations. But we never did. But now the past 2 or 3 years we started doing that. So, yeah, we have something similar here. And fortunately, we're getting those days off where I work too. So that's been nice. More days off. I can't complain about that. Well, I hope the rest of your week goes well. But people in Texas, women in Texas specifically, are definitely having a shit of a time. Because, that's what Texas does. Right-wing Christian fundamentalist asshats destroying people's lives, as always. Have you heard about this? I'm sure it's been all over the news. It's a big thing, at least, definitely here in the United States. Definitely probably throughout Europe too, just looking at the harm that this is going to end up causing. I listened to a small Tom Hartman coverage of this, like 6 or 7 minutes, and it boggles my mind. They're getting around not outlawing it directly, but doing it indirectly. And you haven't seen it yet? Oh, okay. I don't know the whole thing. Effectively, either through the inaction of the Supreme Court allowed some sort of law or ruling to go into effect, which outlawed has been chill for a while. Oh, you lucky bastard. Lucky bastard. that I think they're effectively outlawing abortions past 6 weeks. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Here in the United States, it's a huge clusterfuck. You know, we've got the Afghanistan thing going on. Now we've got, of course, Texas doing Texas things, right? So it's a thing. Where are you from again? I want to say Belgium. That's what comes to mind, but I can't remember. Kitchen sink defense. Are you Belgium? Damn it, UK. All right. Well, at least I'm in Europe somewhere. All right, well, good. I'm glad you guys are more chill than we are, because it needs to be chill somewhere. The United States is a massive clusterfuck. All right, so actually have a bunch of articles on this. I know you're not gonna be here the whole time, but I'll start covering this so you can get at least a little bit of an understanding of what's going on here. I think I have 4 articles here. Yeah, 4 articles talking about this in different facets. All right. Most extreme abortion law in the U.S. takes effect in Texas. U.S. Supreme Court fails to act to block near total ban that allows private citizens to sue abortion providers. Now, this here, I don't fucking get at all. Allows private citizens to sue abortion providers. Now, the key thing here for me is anybody can sue because an abortion happened, this means someone who has no connection to the abortion, not the husband, the wife, the family, not anything. Some random person can sue because an abortion happened. Then this just blows my mind. When I found the Proposition 8 trials in like 2008, 2009, there's this issue of standing. If you don't have an interest in the case, if you're not a part of, a party of the case, then you have no legal standing to sue. And this, I don't get this yet. Hopefully they'll get into it, because no random person is an aggrieved party or is a party to whatever is happening here. So they should have no standing to sue. So this is just, it's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And then I'll share this for you too. Just so before you get out, we'll not go. We'll be back straight in. Okay. In case you don't have a chance to come back, this is Justice Sotomayor's Blistering Dissent. In case you want to read through that, I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Yeah, it's not good. All right, the most radical abortion law in the U.S. has gone into effect despite legal efforts to block it. The near total abortion ban in Texas empowers any private citizen to sue an abortion provider who violates the law. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, because they have a 6-week abortion ban. That's what's going on here. So anyone can file a suit that they have violated the 6-week ban. Okay, well, that makes a little more sense. Opening the floodgates to harassing and frivolous lawsuits from anti-abortion vigilantes that could eventually shutter most clinics in the state. Abortion access will be thrown into absolute chaos, says Amanda Williams, executive director of the abortion support group, the Lilith Fund, a plaintiff in the suit that challenged the law. Fortunately, many people who need access the most will slip through the cracks, as we have seen over the years with relentless attacks here in our state. It is unbelievable that Texas, sorry that sounds like gobbledygook, one of the ladies' signs was worded strangely. Which one here? Okay, so this one here I could probably say we will not go back. Yeah, and this is referring to when abortions were illegal, that abortions happen in back alleys with this sort of stuff. Keep abortion legal. No uterus, no opinion. My body, my choice. Keep abortion safe and legal. So it must be this one you're referring to, right? Or is it this one here? I don't know. It is unbelievable that Texas politicians have gotten away with this devastating and cruel law that will harm so many. Senate Bill 8, ushered through Republican-dominated Texas legislature and signed into law by Republican Governor fuckhead Greg Abbott in May, bars abortion once embryonic cardiac activity is detected, which is around 6 weeks, and offers no exceptions for rape or incest. Yeah, but you can read it as we not go well back. Yeah, exactly. I saw that too when I was looking for which sign you're referring to. Yeah. There are some memes like that with a cat where they've got strange signs, and if you read it like that, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Oh yeah. Texas is the first state to ban abortion this early in pregnancy since Roe versus Wade, and last-minute efforts to halt it through an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court by Tuesday did not succeed. While a dozen other states have passed similar so-called heartbeat bills, they have all been blocked by the courts. The Texas version is novel in that it is intentionally designed to shield government officials from enforcement and thus make legal challenges more difficult to secure. It instead incentivizes any private citizen in the U.S. to bring civil suit against an abortion provider or anyone who aids or abets the procedure. So they're looking at mob rule sort of a thing. This is super messed up. The law immediately and catastrophically reduces abortion access in Texas, say state abortion providers, and will probably force many abortion clinics to ultimately close. It will prevent a majority of Texas women, 85%, from accessing abortion care, and most are not aware that they are pregnant as early as 6 weeks, right? It takes, usually about 2 months before you realize what's going on, right? And I heard that on Wednesday, before this was taking effect, or Wednesday, it was either Wednesday night until midnight or Tuesday night, whichever, that there were women lined up at abortion clinics all throughout the state just to get an abortion in prior to this law taking effect. I mean, God, it's so sad. Joe Biden condemned the new law and reaffirmed the White House's support for abortion rights, but won't do anything about it. This extreme Texas law blatantly violates the constitutional right established under Roe v. Wade and upheld as a precedent for nearly half a century, Biden said in the statement. Planned Parenthood, which operates 11 clinics in the state, and Whole Woman's Health clinics told The Guardian that they would comply with the extreme law despite the fact that it is contrary to their best medical practices. In the days leading up to the law's enactment, Texas clinics say they have been forced to turn away patients who need abortion care at the law's cutoff point this week and into the near future. It is. I mean, it's Texas. It's far right-wing. It's so far right-wing. I mean, right-wing Christian fundamentalists have always been attacking abortion in this country. And it's, Texas in the South, of course, is one of those major right-wing states that are just eventually getting some success in it, unfortunately. Some abortion physicians in Texas have opted to discontinue offering services, choosing to avoid the potential risk of frivolous and costly lawsuits. For instance, most of the physicians across the 4 Whole Woman Health clinics in Texas will not continue care to prevent jeopardizing their livelihoods, said the clinic founder, Amy Hagstrom Miller. Yeah, just the fear will keep them from doing anything. This is going to be devastating. You've got people saying, hey, we need to worry about Afghanistan and the women, right? We should go there and do something to help save the women in Afghanistan. Well, we're not fucking doing jack shit for the women in this country either. So there's a bunch of fucking hypocrisy going on here. We're all going, and just the thing, right? The Democrats, we get back to the Democrats. They control the House and the Senate, all of Congress. They could pass a law to make this legal. They could pass minimum wage, get rid of the filibuster. They could $15 minimum wage, universal health care. They could pass all this stuff right now, but they choose not to. We're going to comply with the law even though it's unethical and inhumane and unjust, Dr. Ghazala Moyedi, a Texas abortion provider and OBGYN, said. It threatens my livelihood and I fully expect to be sued, but my biggest fear is making sure that the most vulnerable in my community, the Black and Latinx patients I see who are already most at risk from logistical and financial barriers, get the care they need. Yeah, and this So this isn't just, of course, a woman thing. It doesn't. I mean, it does. Obviously, it affects women, but it affects women of color more because women of color are disproportionately cast into poverty, and the impoverishment is one of those reasons why women of color, families of color, may want to get abortions, and now they don't have that possibility. So this may, further increase their impoverishment by supporting a child that they can't. The law will force most patients to travel out of state for care, increasing the driving distance to an abortion clinic 20-fold from the average of 12 miles to 248 miles one way, nearly 500 miles round trip, the Guttmacher Institute found. That is only if patients have the resources to do so, including time off work, ability to pay for the procedure, and in some cases, childcare. Yeah, and again, this is an example of how expensive poverty is, right? Minimum wage job, probably won't have time off work, won't have the money to pay for the procedure, and you sure as hell won't have access to decent childcare. And therefore, if you already have kids, right? So they're fucked. Poverty is expensive. Providers and abortion funding support groups who help finance travel, lodging, and direct services for low-income women through donations have spent months scrambling to coordinate with out-of-state clinics, including in New Mexico and Colorado, to ensure patients receive timely care when SB 8 goes into effect. Last year, the state offered a glimpse of what would happen if abortion care ceased. When the state barred most abortion procedures amid the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020, the number of patients who traveled out of state for care jumped nearly 400%. Many abortion-seeking women are expected to be delayed until later in the pregnancy, and others will be forced to carry pregnancy to term or try to end their pregnancies without medical oversight. Abortion providers caution. Yep, and this may end up with women going into back alleys or whatever, doing whatever they can to get rid of their pregnancy and then dying because they bleed out because it's done incorrectly. Making abortions illegal does not prevent abortions. It ensures that more women will die trying to get an abortion. As with most abortion restrictions, low-income women and women of color will bear the greatest burden under SB 8. Yeah, and that's exactly what I said. And this is going to be even more devastating for, of course, people of color. Families of color. Physicians are not the only ones that could be targeted under SB 8. A breathtakingly wide range of people and groups, including clinic nurses, abortion fund workers, domestic violence and rape crisis counselors, or even a family member who offers a car ride to the clinic, could now face suit from strangers. Again, this is aiding and abetting anyone who gets an abortion. Those who sue can collect a minimum of $10,000 if they win, but if providers are legally successful, they can recoup any legal payment. The law says providers will spur abortion bounty hunters. Exactly. This was exactly what's going to happen. These families, these women who are already suffering and agonizing over just the idea of getting an abortion are now going to be hounded and hunted by these fucking sociopaths, making it even worse for them. And I bet this may even end up with more than a few suicides because of this. The law's radical legal provision is the first of its kind in the country. The state's major anti-abortion lobby group, Texas Right to Life, have already helped empower anti-abortion activists to enforce the law by creating a website that invites whistleblowers to report violations of SB 8. In response, pro-choice advocates have flooded the digital entry forms with satirical information. This is amazing. I've seen one thing on this. Yeah, here we go. Yep, so they're just putting garbage in there just to flood everything and make it worth garbage. This would be something to do if you could put together like a script to do it, like once an hour. Just you have people put in, they go to the website, they could put in their, like their entry that they want to have in, and then the website could just put in, automatically put in this stuff once every hour. Blook, blook, blook. Although that might go against the law a little bit as far as seen as a not necessarily hacking, but some sort of law like that, I suppose. But this is good. Abortion providers, funds, and clergy members are represented by the Center for Reproductive Rights, Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and the American Civil Liberties Union filed suit against SB 8 in July, writing that the law would create absolute chaos in Texas and irreparably harm Texans in need of abortion services. A preliminary injunction hearing was originally set for Monday, 30 August in federal court. However, the largely conservative Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals canceled the hearing on Sunday afternoon and denied the plaintiff's request to allow the district court to block the law. Providers then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court for emergency relief. But the court failed to act before the law took effect on Wednesday, allowing it to proceed. While the nation's high court, which now holds a strong anti-abortion contingent, plans to consider a Mississippi 15-week ban that could test Roe v. Wade during the next term, its lack of action in the Texas case signals the possible early unraveling of Roe. Texas is already one of the most difficult states in the U.S. in which to access abortion due to a slew of state laws pushed by Republican-dominated legislature over the past decade, including a 24-hour waiting period, a 20-week abortion ban, restrictions on telemedicine, oh my God, and a prohibition on private and public insurance. It is home to the highest number of abortion deserts, cities in which an abortion-seeking patient must travel at least 100 miles for care in the country. We just need to start shipping people out of Texas. Just keep the far right-wing nut jobs there and watch them kill themselves into, freedom themselves to death, then get everyone else out of there so they can have at least a slightly better quality of life in the rest of the country. Following the passage of a 2013 multi-part law known as House Bill 2, roughly half of the state's abortion clinics shuttered, dropping from 40 to less than 20. While the law was eventually struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2016, many clinics were unable to reopen. Large swaths of the state, including the Panhandle in West Texas, are without an abortion clinic, forcing women to travel great distances for care. Okay, so that is the basics of what is going on with this abortion crap. So here we're getting into the Supreme Court and them not taking the case to stop it, which is of course garbage. That's what happens when you have a 6-3 conservative majority in there. Of course, bad things will always happen because that's what conservatives do. Supreme Court breaking silence won't block Texas abortion law. The law which prohibits most abortions after 6 weeks and went into effect on Wednesday was drafted by Texas lawmakers with the goal of frustrating efforts to challenge it in federal court. The Supreme Court refused just before midnight on Wednesday to block a Texas law prohibiting most abortions less than a day after it took effect and became the most restrictive abortion measure in the nation. Yeah, if this stays in effect, this is what the rest of the South is going to end up doing, and pretty much every other Republican-controlled state in the union. It's going to be horrific. The vote was 5-4, with Chief Justice John R. Roberts joining the court's 3 liberal members in dissent. Okay, good. The majority opinion was unsigned and consisted of a single long paragraph. It said the abortion providers who had challenged the law in an emergency application to the court had not made their case in the face of complex and novel procedural questions. The majority stressed that it was not ruling on the constitutionality of the Texas law and did not mean to limit procedurally proper challenges to it. But the ruling was certain to fuel the hopes of abortion opponents and fears of abortion rights advocates, as the court takes up a separate case in its new term this fall to decide whether Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 decision establishing a constitutional right to the procedure, should be overruled. This is going to be bad. It also left Texas abortion providers turning away patients as they scrambled to comply with the law, which prohibits abortions after roughly 6 weeks. All 4 dissenting justices filed opinions. The court's order is stunning, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote in her dissent. Presented with an application to enjoin a flagrantly unconstitutional law engineered to prohibit women from exercising their constitutional rights and evade judicial scrutiny, a majority of justices have opted to bury their heads in the sand. Word man, how you doing? I'm good. How you doing today? Talking about the Texas law that just went into effect that basically outlaws abortions in Texas. How's Moscow treating you? The court has rewarded the state's effort to delay federal review of a plainly unconstitutional statute enacted in disregard of the court's precedents through procedural entanglements of the state's own creation. Justice Sotomayor wrote, the court should not be so content to ignore its constitutional obligations to protect not only the rights of women, but also the sanctity of its precedents and of the rule of law. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that he would have blocked the law while appeals moved forward. The statutory scheme before this court is not only unusual, but unprecedented, he wrote. The legislature has imposed a prohibition on abortion after roughly 6 weeks, and then essentially delegated enforcement of that prohibition to the populace at large. The desired consequence appears to be to insulate the state from responsibility for implementing and enforcing the regulatory regime. Yeah, and this is exactly right, and it's really messed up. The Chief Justice underscored the tentative nature of the majority's ruling. Although the court denies the applicant's request for emergency relief today, he wrote, the court's order is emphatic in making clear that it cannot be understood as sustaining the constitutionality of the law at issue. Justice Elena Kagan criticized the court's practice of deciding important issues in rushed decisions without full briefing or oral argument on what Supreme Court specialist calls its shadow docket. My body is my own business. In this case, they are hypocrites. Yep. They demand to cancel abortions and at the same time against vaccination. Yeah, exactly right. And that's the, I'm saying that thing as well. My body, my choice, no masks, no vaccines, but my body, my choice, and no abortions too. Right, yeah, the high level of hypocrisy here. It has nothing to do with what's right or what's wrong. It has to do with imposing their fundamentalist right-wing dogma upon the majority. Yeah, it's messed up. Super messed up. Super messed up. It's just the lives that they are destroying just because that is what they want to do. It's horrific. Today's ruling illustrates just how far the court's shadow docket decisions may depart from the usual principles of appellate process, she wrote. That ruling, as everyone must agree, is of great consequence. Yet the majority has acted without any guidance from the Court of Appeals, which is right now considering the same issues, she wrote. It has reviewed only the most cursory party submissions and then only hastily, and it barely bothers to explain its conclusion that a challenge to an obviously unconstitutional abortion regulation backed by a wholly unprecedented enforcement scheme is unlikely to prevail. In all these ways, Justice Kagan wrote, the majority's decision is emblematic of too much of this court's shadow docket decision-making, which every day becomes more unreasonable, inconsistent, and impossible to defend. The Supreme Court majority cited complex and novel procedural questions for its decision, emphasizing that it was not ruling on the constitutionality of the Texas law. Texas law, known as Senate Bill 8, amounts to a nearly complete ban on abortion in Texas because 85 to 90% of procedures in the state happen after the 6th week of pregnancy, according to lawyers for several clinics. On Tuesday night, clinics were scrambling to see patients until the minute the law went into effect, with 6-hour waits for procedures in some places. By Wednesday, the patient list had shrunk, clinic workers said in interviews. The law is the latest battle over abortion rights in the United States. In recent years, anti-abortion campaigners have found success through laws in state legislatures, and a broad swath of the South and the Midwest now has limited access to abortions. Again, when you look at my policies, right, in my Declaration of the Rights of Humanity, this is something that I label as a fundamental right, and I also put it in my healthcare as well. It's abortion. You should have universal healthcare, nationalized healthcare, and abortion should be a normal part of it. Hell, even the messed up Israel has free access to abortions. There's a lot of other countries that have free access to abortions. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's messed up. And we send millions per day to Israel, and they have universal health care, and they have free access to abortion. I like this place because of my economic growth, but I miss the silence of Minsk. Okay, Moscow is huge and noisy, and the air here is worse. In Minsk, too many people are invisible and silent, and in Moscow, you seem to hear and see every one of the 12 million people. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was only in Moscow for a week or so, and I was with some friends there. I hadn't noticed that the sound thing, but I've been in Minsk a few times as well. Still a big town. Still a really big town. Yeah, interesting. Well, I hope you can find some quiet there. 'Cause too much noise can be crazy. If I'm not wrong, you periodically lose a sound, and oh, really? Maybe I need to pull my mic a little bit closer. I've wondered about that. I know during my when I've been recording my videos for the Warhammer 40K battle sector, I've noticed a little bit of the sound going out a little bit. So just pulling it a little bit closer. Hopefully that'll. I am muting it a little bit when I'm trying to clear my throat, so you guys don't have to hear it as well. So that might be what you're noticing. Just me muting it, so you don't have to deal with me clearing my throat. Texas has about 24 abortion clinics, down from roughly 40 before 2013, when the state legislature imposed a previous round of restrictions. It was not immediately clear on Wednesday if every one of them was complying with the law, which the Republican governor signed in May, but many in interviews said they were. Of course they would. In the emergency application urging the justices to intervene, abortion providers in the state said the new law would immediately and catastrophically reduce abortion access in Texas, and most likely force many abortion clinics ultimately to close. Yep. Supreme Court precedents prohibit states from banning abortion before fetal viability, the point at which fetuses can sustain life outside the womb, or about 22 to 24 weeks in a pregnancy. The law in Texas says doctors cannot perform abortions if a heartbeat is detected, which is ridiculous. Activity that starts at around 6 weeks before many women are even aware that they are pregnant. Yeah, that's just so ridiculous. Many states have passed such bans, but the law in Texas is different. It was drafted to make it difficult to challenge in court. Usually, a lawsuit seeking to block a law because it is unconstitutional would name state officials as defendants. However, the Texas law, which makes no exceptions for pregnancies resulting from incest or rape, bars state officials from enforcing it and instead deputizes private individuals to sue anyone who performs the procedure or aids and abets it, which is not completely safe, but no one has the right to forbid a person to do it who knows the reasons and why we should care about the reasons. Yeah, exactly right. It's between the woman and her doctor, and that's it. And that's what I say in my policies too. It's yeah, this is ridiculous. So if they can't, they should just sue the state legislature itself for having passed the law for being unconstitutional. It's nobody's business, but yeah, the doctor and the woman. That's it. The patient may not be sued, but doctors, staff members at clinics, counselors, people who help pay for the procedure, and even an Uber driver taking a patient to an abortion clinic are all potential defendants. Plaintiffs, so they just want new taxpayers. So they want, yeah. Well, that's one way of looking at it, right? So, ensuring that outlawing abortion makes sure no kids are born, and therefore they got new taxpayers. Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. That could be. It's all about the monies, right? Destroying everything. That's pretty funny. A driver taking a patient to an abortion clinic are all potential defendants. Plaintiffs who do not need to live in Texas, have any connection to the abortion, or show any injury from it are entitled to $10,000 and their legal fees recovered if they win. Prevailing defendants are not entitled to legal fees, which is super fucked up. Yeah, and this is messed up. So this just gives random people just the ability to sue willy-nilly and suffer no consequences for being wrong or being douchebags in general. It's super wrong. Super wrong. That novel formulation has sent clinics scrambling. Dr. Jessica Rubino, a doctor at Austin Women's Healthcare Center, a small independent clinic in the state capital, said that at first she wanted to defy what appeared to be an unconstitutional law, but she said she concluded that doing so would put her staff at risk. If this was a criminal ban, we'd know what this is and what we can and cannot do, said Dr. Rubino said. But this ban has civil implications. It requires a lawyer to go to court, it requires lawyers' fees, and then $10,000 if we don't win. What happens if everybody is sued, not just me? She added, my staff is nervous. They've been asking, what about our families? Exactly right. There's such a fucked up law. Yeah, so anyone who's ever touched any part of the abortion can be sued and taken to court, and if they lose, you're talking $10,000 for, you know, the parents who supported it, the driver, anyone who's put money in to get the abortion done. Everyone can get sued, and everyone can lose lots of things under this messed up law. Dr. Rubino said her clinic had struggled so much to come up with any plan to take care of anyone under the new law, and on Wednesday was sorting out what the new policies would be. For example, she wondered if someone knows they are more than 6 or 7 weeks pregnant, roughly the new legal limit, should the clinic advise them to go out of state and not waste money on an ultrasound. Doctors who are sued, even if the suit is dismissed, have to report the lawsuits when they renew licenses or obtain hospital admitting privileges, according to Amy Hagstrom Miller, the chief executive of at Whole Woman's Health, which operates 4 clinics in Texas. America really sucks at the moment. The future is under threat. 2 parties suck. Shit, as a foreigner, I understand that there are no changes for the better. Yeah, I'll agree completely. Definitely as an American. It's America, as Trump has said, or as he has phrased it, America is a shithole country. We have the highest level of inequality in the developed world. We've got right-wing fuckheads like this destroying people's lives because they can, because their dogma, because their beliefs are more important than people. And that's one of the big problems with religion in general. Or actually conservatism in general. It's their beliefs. Their beliefs are more important than the harm that they cause. Dogma over people. That's always going to be destructive. Yeah, there's a lot of that going around because there's a lot of inequality increasing. As inequality increases, conservatism and tribalism goes up, and all that harm keeps going out. There was little indication of the shifting legal ground outside the Planned Parenthood Center for Choice in Houston, the group's only location in the city that provides abortion services. A blue bus offering free pregnancy tests from an anti-abortion group, a regular presence, sat across the street, but inside the effect was clear. Dr. Bhavik Kumar, a staff physician, said he had seen 6 patients by Wednesday afternoon, down from his usual 30. I'll open that up and see if we're going to take a look at that. At Whole Women's Health of Fort Worth, the last patient appointed was completed at 11:56 p.m. on Tuesday, said Marva Sadler, the organization's senior director of clinic services. She said doctors started early on Tuesday morning and treated 117 patients, far more than usual. It was absolutely organized chaos, said Ms. Sadler, who had come from San Antonio to help out. Patients were waiting upward of 5 and 6 hours to have their procedures done. She said patients were waiting in their cars and also in the waiting room. Some were told to come back later. On Wednesday, she said the clinic was in uncharted waters. Of the 79 people on the schedule, she estimated that only 20 would be able to eventually complete their procedures. Many, she said, would be too far along in their pregnancies to be treated under the new law. People are confused, she said. They don't know where to go. They don't know what this law is. The immediate question for the justices was not whether the Texas law is constitutional, but whether it may be challenged in federal court. The law's defenders say that given the way the law is structured, only Texas courts can rule on the matter, and only the context of suits against abortion providers for violating the law. Okay, so that given the way the law is structured, only Texas courts can rule on the matter, and only in the context of suits against abortion providers for violating the law. The Supreme Court's ruling was provisional. The challenge to the law remains pending in the lower federal courts, and they are poised to sort through the complex issue in the case. There's nothing fucking complex about it. As the law came into force, Democrats assailed it and pledged to fight to retain abortion rights in Texas and nationwide. In a statement, President Biden said the measure blatantly violates the constitutional right to abortion established by Roe v. Wade. So again, he said in the beginning that if they wanted to, they could put a law together right now and they could pass it and put it through, but they're not going to because Democrats are a bunch of fascist asshats who don't give a fuck about the people. Because they don't get paid to. It's not where the money is. Can't understand correctly. Who am I? It seems I prefer libertarianism with some biases towards left and right, so to speak. Try to take the best from everything. Goddamn, I'm a centrist. Well, I know the feeling. When I first got into politics, 15 years ago, as I remember correctly, I took the political compass test and it said I was a centrist. But then as I got into politics more, I went further and further, further and further left because it always comes down to the harm caused to people. And as your politics revolves around compassion and whether or not people are being harmed, you're going to go further and further to the left until you're just completely enraged every single day because of bullshit like this happening. Not, in your part of the world, in your country, and everywhere, just everywhere. I mean, it's horrific. Having your politics based on compassion for others, there's just so much rage involved. So much rage. It always shows me that I'm a centrist. Fake LOL every test from CNN 100%. Yeah, have you tried the political compass test? Is that the one you're referring to? Have you taken this one? I've taken this one several times. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the one I've taken, and where I'll show you here. I can show you where I fall. There we go. Took it, I think, last year. On some Russian test, okay. And yeah, so this, I've taken, yeah, so here's my post about it. Yeah, this is just bullshit here. I was just enraged at this. These fuckerheads shouldn't be on here. Anyhow. Political compass, yeah. Political compass has me right way the hell down here. In the green area, of course. I'll go and throw this in here in case you want to take a look at it. That was in 2019 when I took this. Yeah, 2006, I wrote, I am a centrist, maybe? Oh, the advocates. Yeah, but she's a Democrat. She's, yeah, again, that's before the election stuff happened. This is 2019. So yeah, I'm torn on Gabbard. She's, I have some issues with her. So yeah, I definitely, currently I don't support her. It'd be the Green Party and Bernie Sanders primarily. And now that who else is going to probably be running? Um, it's hard to say. She has some biases, which I'm not that familiar with her, but she has some issues. But she is fairly progressive. She's an anti-war Democrat, which is important. Anti-imperialist in some ways. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to look at her a lot closer to know where I stand. But currently she's not on my to vote for list. All right, in its next term, which starts in October, the Supreme Court is set to decide whether Roe v. Wade should be overruled in a case from Mississippi concerning a state law banning most abortions after 15 weeks that has been blocked by the courts. The Texas case, which was on the court's shadow docket without a full briefing or oral arguments, leapfrogged the one from Mississippi. Texas and Mississippi laws are among many measures enacted by Republican-controlled state legislatures intended to test the durability of Roe in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the 1992 decision that affirmed Roe's core holding and said states may not impose an undue burden on the right to abortion before fetal viability. Okay, I'm not at all familiar with the Casey decision, so that's interesting. I think that Vernon's ponies is already dead because he's still not a president. Vernon? Vernon? Whose ponies? What are you talking about, Willis? The lawmakers behind the various state-based measures are betting that the Supreme Court's Vermin Supreme. Okay. Okay. That the Supreme Court's recent shift to the right will lead it to sustain the new laws. The court now includes 3 members appointed by President Trump, who had vowed to name justices prepared to overrule Roe versus Wade. One of them, Justice Brett Rapist Kavanaugh, replaced Justice Anthony Kennedy, a cautious supporter of abortion rights. Another, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, replaced Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, who viewed access to abortion as essential to women's autonomy and equality. Yeah, I mean, it really is. The choice to whether or not you want to have a child is core to a woman's autonomy and choice, most definitely. 2 months after Senate Bill 8 was signed into law by fuckhead Governor Greg Abbott, abortion providers in Texas filed suit in federal court, naming, among others, every state trial court judge and the county court clerk in Texas. The defendants responded that they were not proper parties and were in any event immune from being sued. A federal trial judge rejected a motion to dismiss the case and scheduled a hearing on whether to block the law, but the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans canceled the hearing. Challengers said they were at a minimum entitled to a decision on their request for the law to be temporarily suspended. Okay, so that's that one. Now this one... We've read this one already, haven't we? Yeah, we did. Okay. All right. So here's Sotomayor's Blistering Dissent. It's her rather aggressive opinion on how messed up this really is. All right, it's not too long. We'll go through this. Justice Sotomayor, with whom Justice Breyer and Justice Kagan join dissenting. The court's order is stunning, presented with an application to enjoin a flagrantly unconstitutional law engineered to prohibit women from exercising their constitutional rights. Let me get this a bit bigger so we can all read it, because I'm going blind too. And evade judicial scrutiny. A majority of justices have opted to bury their heads in the sand. Last night, the court silently acquiesced in a state's enactment of a law that flouts nearly 50 years of federal precedents. Today, the court belatedly explains that it declined to grant relief because of procedural complexities of the state's own invention. Ante at 1, because of the court's failure to act, rewards tactics designed to avoid judicial review and inflict significant harm on the applicants and on women seeking abortions in Texas. I dissent. In May 2021, the Texas legislature enacted SB 8, the act. The act, which took effect statewide at midnight on September 1, makes it unlawful for physicians to perform abortions if they either detect cardiac activity in an embryo or fail to perform a test to detect such activity. Section 3, to be codified, blah, blah, blah. This equates to a near categorical ban on abortions beginning 6 weeks after a woman's last menstrual period, before many women realize they are pregnant, and months before fetal viability. According to the applicants, who are abortion providers and advocates in Texas, the act immediately prohibits care for at least 85% of Texas abortion patients and will force many abortion clinics to close. The act is clearly unconstitutional under existing precedents. Okay, here's some court cases explaining that the state may not impose an undue burden on the woman's ability to obtain an abortion of non-viable fetus. That's Roe versus Wade. In Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, the respondents do not even try to argue otherwise, nor could they. No federal appellate court has upheld such a comprehensive prohibition on abortions before viability under the current law. The Texas legislature was well aware of this binding precedent. To circumvent it, the legislature took the extraordinary step of enlisting private citizens to do what the state could not. The act authorizes any private citizen to file a lawsuit against any person who provides an abortion in violation of the act, aids or abets such an abortion, including by paying for it, regardless of whether they know the abortion is prohibited under the act or even intends to engage in such conduct. Courts are required to enjoin the defendant from engaging in these actions in the future and to award the private citizen plaintiff at least $10,000 in statutory damages for each forbidden abortion performed or aided by the defendant. This is so messed up. He's literally bounty hunting abortions. In effect, the Texas legislature has deputized the state's citizens as bounty hunters, offering them cash prizes for civilly prosecuting their neighbors' medical procedures. The legislature fashioned this scheme because federal constitutional challenges to state laws ordinarily are brought against state officers who are in charge of enforcing the law. By prohibiting state officers from enforcing the act directly and relying instead on citizen bounty hunters, the legislature sought to make it more complicated for federal courts to enjoin the act on a statewide basis. Taken together, the act is a breathtaking act of defiance of the Constitution, of this court's precedents, and of the rights of women seeking abortions throughout Texas. But over 6 weeks after the applicants filed suit to prevent the act from taking effect, a Fifth Circuit panel abruptly stayed all proceedings before the district court and vacated a preliminary injunction hearing that was scheduled to begin on Monday. The applicants requested emergency relief from this court, but the court said nothing. The act took effect at midnight last night. Today, the court finally tells the nation that it declined to act because, in short, the state's gambit worked. The structure of the state's scheme, the court reasons, raises complex and novel antecedent procedural questions that counsel against granting the application, just as the state intended. This is untenable. It cannot be the case that a state can evade federal judicial scrutiny by outsourcing the enforcement of unconstitutional laws to its citizenry. Yeah, it's just like going back to the fucking wild, wild west. Moreover, the district court held this case justiciable in a thorough and well-reasoned opinion after weeks of briefing and consideration. At a minimum, this court should have stayed implementation of the act to allow the lower courts to evaluate these issues in the normal course. Instead, the court has rewarded the state's effort to delay federal review of a plainly unconstitutional statute enacted in disregard of the court's precedents through procedural entanglements of the state's own creation. Maxery, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're talking about the Texas anti-abortion bullshit. Hopefully you and your state's a little bit better than Texas, because everything's more fucked up in Texas, right? The court should not be so content to ignore its constitutional obligations to protect not only the rights of women, but also the sanctity of its precedents and of the rule of law. I dissent. So yeah, this is the Justice Sotomayor's dissent of the Supreme Court's lack of action. I'll go and throw that in here again for you. I think this is the last article I have on this. Yes, yes it is. Last one. I'm clearly in favor of legalizing abortion, but I do not agree on talking women into it, because I've seen abortion mostly affects marginalized people. Oh, right. And we were talking about that earlier, that people of color are disproportionately cast into poverty and therefore are a demographic that would most likely, it would be a demographic that'll want abortion potentially more. And of course, because they're impoverished, it makes it even more difficult for them to do that. It's just devastating. Your tests show that I'm economic left-right, 3 social, libertarian, authoritarian, left-red, 1 square. Do I have... I closed down my page. Yikes. Yeah, for a lot of impoverished families, that's pretty much, this is a bit too conspiracy-like to me. Well, yeah. So you're, Worm, you're -3, so you're up here. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, getting down here is where you need to be. Down over here. We'll get you converted at some point. All right, where were we? We are here. So political compass. At least this is the one that I had taken before. It has me. Okay. Yeah, mine has me way, I'm like way the hell down here. In the green area, of course. And the worm says he's up here somewhere. All right, while doing that, I'll go on with the next one on the abortion ban. Then we'll move on to something a little more interesting, I think. What the Texas abortion ban does and what it means for other states. Yikes. With the U.S. Supreme Court mum, a new law went into effect in Texas that bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. That's well before many women know they are pregnant. Don't tread on me. I don't think I have that one. I don't think I have that one. I have some Metallica in my playlist. Come on, Metallica. I don't have too much in here. Yeah, I've got Nothing Else Matters, Sad But True, The Unforgiven, and Wherever I May Roam. I do need to get more Metallica in my list. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Are you? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, some of the I've taken a few of these tests on stream, and the biases that some of these tests have can make it kind of difficult, especially for me, where I come at things as someone who looks down through the lens of a resource-based economy, because that's where my politics is rooted in, and compassion and things like that. And they usually put things in terms of socialism and communism and things of that nature. So it's hard for me to answer that, because that's not how I think about it. I think in order for real change, even opposing sides maybe gotta stick together, because the system is based on division of different groups. Well, right. In this country, at least, the two-party system is a large part of the problem. So it says, yes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, on that perspective. Well, the big thing here is that our country is, of course, controlled by the corporations and the 1%. And it's honestly, it's class warfare. 1991 album. Okay. Well, that's the Black Album, right? I think that's the one that I grew up with. That whole album was amazing. I could listen to that all day long. Yeah, it's amazing album. I have to find the rest of the songs that I have on my computer and just throw them in there. But yeah, here in this country, and actually I talk about it in this post. The means of production should belong to the workers. See, I have a problem with that. And again, I haven't studied communism and socialism as well as I need to comment on this. But for me, even that means it is a division, because the workers may own, the specific workers of a specific company may own, the capital, but that still pits the workers of that company against workers from other companies, and it's inherently still divisive. But I want to write an entire article just on that very concept, communism, socialism versus a resource-based economy, because because when people talk about, yeah, okay, good. So I've got a point then. Good. All right. So that's because when you talk to people about a resource-based economy, they're like, well, that's just communism. Well, no, it's not, but I can't explain it. So I want to eventually do the research on that and write the post on why it's different. As a matter of fact, we have a post coming up here that's going to kind of go through it a little bit. I don't think I agree with everything they say, but it's interesting. When I have studied, there's now a whirring fusion of information and entertainment. What's your take on that? Do you have an example of that? I mean, it's like edutainment. I mean, using entertainment to educate people is a very good idea, and that's a good way of entertaining people, a good way of educating people, because a lot of people aren't just going to sit here and just, like me, I love academic reading. I'll sit down and I'll just cram through something and I'll love it, but most people can't do that. Could or should be in the form of entertainment, or maybe reach people. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. If you put it in entertainment, it's much easier for people to absorb it, and they are more willing to absorb it through entertainment. Definitely, it's a political compass question, so I don't know what they mean. Oh, is it? I think information could or should be in form of entertainment to maybe reach. Really? That's strange. I'm not sure how to answer that either. I guess I would say yes to that. I mean, slightly agree, yeah. Like Doctor Who, when Doctor Who was started, that's how it was meant. It was meant to be edutainment. It's about teaching history through the lens of a Time Lord and stuff like that. It's page one, last question. Absolutely left? Gotta be absolutely left. Good for you. Welcome to the left. Your guys' take on this: from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. Fundamentally good idea. Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm talking about. They've put these questions in specifically talking from the frame of reference of communism and socialism, and it's hard for me. You know, I mean, sure, that's a neat idea, but there's much more to that. Like for me, when I talk about a resource-based economy, I have a different saying. Oh, that's the category. I don't want the category. To each according to what we can equitably provide. That's what we should be saying. And that's kind of, for me, the core motto of what a resource-based economy is. So yeah, but they're putting those questions in there specifically targeting, do you support communism? Do you support socialism? And that unnecessarily limits the breadth of what they could do. Yeah, no, I think you know, I have problems with them too because they're biased. There's some strange questions in this test, but the test is still fine. Yeah. Almost all the tests I've taken, they always have a bias, and that they're always, the limit of their field of view is communism, socialism, and that's pretty much it. And it's like there's so much more out there than that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. In capitalistic society, it's the lesser evil than free market access, but I oppose capitalism generally. Well, this is even hard to talk about because capitalism in and of itself is harmful because it's competitive. It sets countries against countries, and much as we see in Africa and Central and South America, these countries are being absolutely annihilated by the West's imperialism. The West, quote, imposition of the free market upon emerging markets and second and third world countries, especially as is engaged through the IMF and the World Bank and economic warfare against these countries. It's racism on a global level. It's the predominantly white global north exploiting the global south. And of course, the very existence of protectionism is a result of that tribalism, of that nationalism, of that separation of peoples and countries from each other because of these invisible lines, which in and of themselves create that problem. It creates the merge, the concept of protectionism, of free market. Agree that we want a world government, right, and in that world government, the production should purely be based on equality and going further as humankind trade in the capitalist sense. Now, yeah, so even when I talk about resource-based economy, I wouldn't necessarily call it a global government, a world government, and that phrase is loaded because we're talking about Illuminati and people fucking lose their minds when you say that, but it does tend to be like that. Like specifically, a resource-based economy is based on Jacques Fresco talks about it cybernated, right? Using the Internet of Things to take in all the data and do the planned economy thing, manage everything just in time so that everyone has everything they need and that things aren't going to waste and things are sustainable and that sort of a thing. But yeah, production should be based on equality. Yes, that is true. And not necessarily competition and stuff like that. Like in a resource-based economy, do I had to buy a PC from the money I earned, or will the government provide PC? Well, it's not really the government. Again, it's really almost beyond government. because government is more of a government is there to protect capital, and this is talking about it from the standpoint of communism, right? Private property versus personal property. You won't have money in a resource-based economy. If you want a huge, I've got a huge thing here. This post here is a bit snarky because I was answering questions from a capitalist apologist. If you can start with this, and it links to all my other posts talking about a resource-based economy, like specifically, like a productivity motivation, housing, employment, and what it might look like. Where is it? How will a resource-based economy work? I go into that sort of a thing there. But it's more that, you know, I think like a computer, like you're probably based on need, right? Like right now my computer is overpowered for what I need. I did overkill. So I have 64 gigs of RAM and I barely break 30. So if I had, you know, based on my usage, I wouldn't have a computer this powerful because I don't need it. Mine would be limited to, you know, 30, maybe 48. Perhaps with the statistics that's gathered on my computer usage, they would, you know, if I was using it more, then okay, hey, you know, you've been using it a bit more, you probably need to upgrade you to 48 so that you're not limited in what you're doing. It's not so much buying. It's if you want, you can generally have it, but there are limits, you know, within societal limits based on, you know, sustainability and that sort of a thing. Should be questioned. Yes, all authorities should be questioned, especially in this day and age, because everything is fucked up. Don't like that there is no my favorite I don't know in the test. The question, should school talk about religion with kids, somehow confused me. I really don't know. In our schools, they didn't talk much about religion. I mean, why would I question an expert on Corona, for example? Well, here, when you look, I'll get to you in just a second, Wormiak, because that's a very important question. I have a very definite take on that. But when you look at the quote experts on coronavirus, there's a whole wide variety of what quote experts say, right? You've got some that experts, the doctor that Trump, you know, supported Trump, that's talking about, or the one that supported Trump talking about demons and aliens and stuff like that, right? Even questioned the experts because the experts aren't perfect. They're still human and they're still biased. Scientists are still biased, right? So even question the experts because the experts are still human and they're not perfect. Yeah, I do kind of call it a technocracy. I know some people don't like that word either, but that is kind of what it would end up kind of being like, right? You have this massive computers taking in all the data, you know, figuring out our usage and our needs, and then making sure we have it and that sort of a thing. People use the same argument on climate change. I mean, there is a huge consensus on climate change. Why we got to question that? Okay, so right, so climate change, yeah, we shouldn't be questioning that because 99.9999% of scientists agree on that. So you're right, there shouldn't be. So this is people who question that, of course, conservatives and specifically religious conservatives, because you know that's their thing. Coronavirus, it's very similar to. I mean, there's some other underlining issues with that. You get into, well, conservatives go against it just because they're conservatives, but you know, we've got issues of trust with the government, right? And trust with the FDA and things like that, because like, right, exactly. For climate change, that shouldn't be a thing. We shouldn't be questioning anything. But you've got the religious right saying, right, God this, God that. So there's that problem. And a lot of them are in the government. A lot of them are in doing talk shows and stuff like that. So there's a huge social and religious aspect that keep people from just, you know, 99% agree about climate change. So what's the question? Well, God or whatever other stupid shit, right? Yeah. What do I see in a lot of processors and a lot of graphic cards? I just want PC not like this. Yeah, it's okay. So I'll go to your religious question. So religion should be taught in schools, and I don't mean we need to be indoctrinating people. We need to be indoctrinating our children into any given religion. We need to be teaching comparative religion. We need to be teaching children about religions. You need to teach them about Christianity, maybe some of its history, because that's super fascinating. Judaism, Hinduism, Wicca, paganism, atheism, agnosticism, right? Islam, of course. And so we need to teach our children about the wide variety of religious beliefs out there, because if alcoholism, okay, there we go. That, if our children don't understand what these religions are, they're going to be afraid of them. And the core benefit of teaching comparative religion is that our children will be less afraid of these things, and it'll be harder for our populace, our children and our citizens, to be bigoted towards other religions. I'm not a Scientologist, but I find the religious belief of it quite interesting, and it's so obscure. Yeah, if Gaming Mind pops on, he's really done a bit of research on them. He's kind of fascinating on them too. Yeah, it's pretty. I haven't gone into it either, but it's interesting. The cult of Scientology. It is fascinating. Like, when I got into politics, I got into politics because of gay marriage, and so I spent a crap load of time studying Christian religion, Christian history, Christian philosophy, theology, divine feminine symbology, and stuff like that. L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, could be. I think I read one of his books, one of his sci-fi books. And his movie with John Travolta was interesting. But that's it. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read much of his stuff. So yeah, teaching religion is important. And it's a necessary thing. And it's necessary for our children to understand. Just like comparative religion needs to be taught, comparative anthropology needs to be taught, so that people understand other cultures, so we can be less afraid of them. The more we understand about religion and different societies and stuff like that, that the world becomes a less scarier place, and it becomes harder and harder to be bigoted. Look, a guy that likes sci-fi, what's your take on Philip K. Dick? The fact that there's something like pre-crime is planned, like Minority Report shows how prophetic. Yeah, I have not read any of his stuff. I'm not nowhere near as well read as I need to be, but when I was studying novel writing, that is a name that popped up as one of kind of the fathers of contemporary science fiction. Didn't he do Blade Runner? Wasn't that his work? I could swear it is. Yeah, I haven't read any of his stuff. But you'll see a lot of, science fiction. Yeah, Blade Runner. Okay, cool. That a lot of science fiction people are just that. They really see into the future, and they try and figure out, where can this go? What could the world be like, right? And how can I, stretch my imagination and the conceptualizations of what society would be like. What was the other one? Heinlein? I haven't read his stuff either, but I really want to read his stuff. He also had another, conception of what the future might be like, especially on the level of society, how society might be different, relationships, stuff like that. Yeah, there's lots of amazing writers out there really, questioning what the future can be. And these writers, of course, in writing the things that they do, they affect Martian time slip. Who is that? Is that Heinlein? I'm not sure. These science fiction writers that write about the future, they, in a sense, guide the way science and technology will eventually go. Oh, it's Philip K. Okay, Philip K. Dick. Okay, cool. Yeah, I need to start adding some of those to my my listening list, because currently I'm just listening to a bunch of Star Wars stuff on my walks and stuff. Maybe I need to expand my my reading. Yeah, so science fiction can guide science and research and innovation and that sort of thing, just by the outlandish ideas that they're thinking of. Star Trek was huge. Yeah, it had a huge impact on science and technology and society. It's amazing. Sci-fi book playing on Mars. Very political. You would enjoy it. It features the problems and resources of nationalism expanded on Mars. Even a big focus on the... Oh, okay. Cool. Martian time slip. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I'll write that down. Martian time slip. Okay, I have it written down. Yeah, right now I'm listening to one of the new Star Wars books from the High Republic series. I think I'm on book 4 of that series. An anti-fascist, too outspoken. He made books about possible future where the Axis won World War II. Oh, interesting. Ollie, man, glad to hear from you. How you doing? Are you sore as fuck? Star Wars I never got into, more of a Trekkie. Okay, yeah. I understand that. Okay, good to hear. So you got the next week off or so to rest and allow your body to heal. Big surprise for me was they're different. Maybe. Well, I hope so. After surgery and stuff, that's gonna be a necessary thing to recover from. Worm, I have not read the Bible myself, but I've read a lot of people who have. Okay, man. Glad to hear from you. Get some rest, dude. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Reading the Talmud, very interesting. That's from Judaism, right? You got the Torah, which is the core book, and the Talmud is there to help explain it, right? Is that how that works? God, it's been so long. It's been... Okay, good. Whew. I remembered. Whew. Cool. Yeah, I did most of my reading between 2005 and 2010, somewhere along there. Apparently, I'm too smart for philosophy. Yeah, well, exactly. When you look at the Bible, it depends on which Bible you're studying, because the Bible in which translation and stuff like that, and you look at the synoptic gospels and you compare them, they're all a little bit different. Some scholars believe that the original gospel was Mark, and then the other gospels were based off that and were changed in order to put out a different theological message or something like that. Because like just looking at the time when Jesus was that thing they did to him, my God, crucified is different in all 4 of the different synoptic gospels. Though the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Well, I am torn on this, honestly, because, especially from the standpoint of resource-based economy, data is what we need. And I've specifically I think about this exact thing. I mean, how do we, surveillance from the standpoint of data gathering is important for many, many things, but how do we, allow the data gathering to also not violate people's privacy? I mean, obviously people are doing things wrong are the ones who most likely need to be worried about it, but we do have a right to privacy. Like when I'm thinking about this cyber nation and a resource-based economy, like there might be the sensors and whatever might have several different layers to it, so that perhaps maybe it'll record that there were people there, and then if you are part of law enforcement or whatever, maybe you can find out on a different lower layer when it records that who specifically was there. Then you can get the full camera and camera feed of who was there or whatever. But I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know where I stand on that. It's difficult because data is useful and people have a right to privacy. So I am definitely torn on that. It's a matter of how can we implement information gathering for the data required to manage a resource-based economy without violating people's rights to privacy. How do you walk that knife's edge? Minus 738 social, minus 4. Okay, let's go back here. So you're at minus. You're over here. You're over here? Like over. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So like right over here. Okay, good. All right. So yeah, I'm a bit more lefty than you are, but that's cool. That's cool. You're in the right quadrant though. Yeah. So for me, it's about just balancing, privacy with data gathering. How do we do that successfully and have it not be abused? It's difficult because as long as people are involved, that's always going to be a thing. Bible for kids? You could. That's a place to start. You could, like, for me, I have not read the Bible directly. I've read people who have read it. A lot of academics who have read on this topic and a lot of articles on it. Like you find like an aspect of the Bible or Christianity that you're interested in and start, reading, finding books or articles on that and have that be your in to studying it, and then I'll kind of give it to you as you go. Like for me, that's how I did it, because gay marriage was my thing. That's what got me into studying it. Try any questions, because I'd answer them differently if we had different, better system stuff. Yeah, exactly. I was too. It's how do you, and then their inherent bias with communism and socialism too made that a little more difficult as well, because the question on its face, if absent communism or socialism might make sense to answer it, one way, but knowing that they're talking about communism, socialism, it has you answer differently. And yeah, if we had a better system, of course, things would be very, very different. If only we could have a different system. If only. But yeah, if you want to get into like the resource-based economy and my thoughts on it, I've got like 200 pages written. I mean, if you're that bored, and this is the one post I shared to you, which is this Q&A post, links to all of them, and you can or you can just go to these individually and see what my thoughts are on them, because there's so much there. And in a sense, if we teach comparative religion, comparative anthropology, they can greatly help reduce bigotry and fear and that sort of a thing. Because that's one of the primary drivers of tribalism and bigotry, is that ignorance. We need to destroy that as much as possible. And teaching about how wide and different the world is can increase a child's awe, but also make them less afraid, which is a core part of what we need to be doing in our schools. The current prison demographic makes me go for amnesty for all prisoners instead of finally treat them as people that need special support, not to be thrown in cell over. Yeah. So, right. I mean, here in the United States, well, in much of the world, you're right. I mean, but in a country there would be prisoners. It's like, okay. Well, actually, in a perfect country, the Aryan Brotherhood wouldn't exist, because neo-Nazis and racists wouldn't exist. The existence of racism, tribalism on that level is a failure of the society in whole. Generally, at least from what my readings have shown, Tribalism is a direct result of inequality, a direct result of scarcity. Like if you go back, I've got a small, I won't go into that. The more tribalism there is, the more racism and stuff like that it's going to be. And in this day and age where we can effectively, you know, we can give everyone an amazing life, and we can basically not completely end racism and bigotry, but we can, because we can effectively destroy inequality, and we can educate people in such a way that they understand a lot about the world through comparative religion, comparative anthropology, right? Teaching compassion and empathy, and teaching, you know, doing exercises that allow our children to understand that we have much deeper connections between each other than we could ever, you know, consider. If you, well, here, let me, I'll share here's my educational policies. This is perhaps one of my most important policies on this page. So like if you go down here, if you go to the bottom, here are these amazing videos from Denmark. We've watched these on my stream before. Go and take the time to watch these. These are not that long, like 9 or 10 minutes. Basically, what they do is they go and bring these people together from all different backgrounds and, you know, demographics, and they put them in boxes. Like the jocks are over here, the business people are over here, the nerds are over here. Then they ask questions like, okay, so who was the class clown? Right, and then all the people from the different demographics go over there. So now they got something in common, right? Who likes to dance? And all the people who like to dance go over there, right? So it's finding these ways that we can break down these boundaries, these separations between you and me, and break down the conceptions we have of each other, the projections we have of each other. When I look at you, I think you're this. But once we get down to the things that we have in common, well, we have things in common, and that brings us closer as individuals and as a society. And when you look at ways of trying to deal with bigotry and bullying in schools, these are the sorts of things that can be done to reduce it. Because once we have things in common, once we understand, you know, who these individuals are, know their names, their families, their hobbies, it becomes much harder. Oh, the human library is another amazing thing. Eye gazing. Yeah, so there's a lot there. If you're that bored to read. Okay, let's see. All right, we'll continue on with this last article on the abortion ban here. Have we started it? We have not even started it yet. So, what the Texas abortion ban does and what it means for other states. With U.S. Supreme Court mum, a new law went into effect in Texas that bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. That's well before many women even know they are pregnant. The law allows private citizens to sue abortion providers and anyone who helps a woman obtain an abortion, including those who give a woman a ride to the clinic or provide financial assistance to obtain an abortion. Private citizens who bring these suits don't need to show any connection to those they are suing. And this is a really messed up part of this. The snake looks for which? Up here? Oh, here, don't tread on me. Ah, okay. Yeah. So it looks like an ovary. That's what. The woman's, or fallopian tubes. Sorry, fallopian tubes. That's what it looks like. Fallopian tubes. The women's reproductive parts. The law allows private citizens to sue. Okay, I already read that. The law makes no exceptions for cases involving rape or incest. Here's why the law is one of the strictest abortion bans in the country. It bans abortion as soon as cardiac activity is detectable. That's around 6 weeks, which is before a lot of people know that they're pregnant. Other states have tried to do this, but those laws have been challenged by abortion rights groups and blocked by federal courts again and again. How is this law different from other states' attempts? Groups who oppose abortion rights have pushed for this Texas law, hoping that it will be harder for federal courts to knock it down. Instead of requiring public officials to enforce the law, this law allows individuals to bring civil lawsuits against abortion providers or anyone else found to aid or abet illegal abortions. Cottonmouth! Any illegal abortions in Texas, I want my $10,000. Yeah, this shit's fucked up. So fucked up. Just right-wingers just make my blood boil. How you doing today? Yeah, just bounty hunters. It just sets up just anyone sitting there sniping, just hoping to God he can get his fucking payout. It's horrific. It sets the citizens against each other. Save a baby, make some cash. God. Yeah, someone said earlier, I think Wormiak said earlier, that this is trying to create more taxpayers. Yeah, it's save a baby, destroy a whole bunch of people's lives. Maybe I can start a business. I can bet you that there's going to be people who are exactly going to be doing that. They're going to set up cameras. They're going to sit out there and, sit there and just try and catch someone doing something wrong. That's exactly what's going to go on. Again, it's setting our citizens against each other, and it's so fucked up. So very fucked up. And any kind of law which kind of does that is automatically private enterprise to the rescue. Exactly. Capitalism to the rescue, right? Fuck. Capitalism is the problem. The fact that people can be rewarded for helping destroy other people's lives is pretty fucked up. Pretty fucked up. Fucked up to the maximum. This law empowers individuals to enforce an abortion ban. How would that work in practice? Anyone who successfully sues an abortion provider under this law could be awarded at least $10,000. And to prepare for that, Texas Right to Life has set up what it calls a whistleblower website where people can submit anonymous tips about anyone they believe to be violating the law. Yeah, this is a McCarthyism over again. Apartments, what I saw on Zillow, Tennessee, approximately 4 to 5 months. What's that? What are you talking about, Worm? $10,000. Oh, yeah. Yeah, a part of that is because of the housing crisis that's happening. People are losing their houses, the evictions and stuff like that. People like BlackRock companies like BlackRock are buying all these up and jacking up the prices. Yeah, it's going to be horrific. Oh my God, communism is the problem. That's a fucked up system. After all, what's failed, you'd think people would stop advocating for it. I guess the fact that people are still communists is a testament how... I would disagree completely. You have to understand that communism... well, I've got a whole thing on that, actually. Communism, socialism, and the labor movement themselves sprung up as reactions to the horrors and exploitation and wars and poverty and suffering inherent to capitalism. Well, you have the right to be wrong. Well, but they're not actually communists, though. That's the thing you have to understand. There have been no actual communist countries in existence. That's the first thing, and most of them have been. Here, let me bring this up. Let me hold on. I've got two little things here to talk about here. Socialism. An article on this. The continuing of socialism. I talk about this McCarthyism and how that communism has never actually existed. That is important to understand. And then in this all the commie countries went bust. Well, yes. Yeah, well, actually, there haven't been communist countries. Almost every single country that we call quote, communist, let me just pull it up, were first attempts to go to socialism, because socialism was seen as the transitional point to get to communism. Blah, blah, blah. Commie being baiting is a gas. Endless ammo. Yeah, so the Red Scare, blah, 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 100 years. Do I talk about this? Where do I talk about this? Yeah, so there's that post there. And then in this one, I talk about why it has failed. Is it in this one? It's not in this one. It's in this one. I'm not a commie. Resource-based economy. Here we go. There you go. So here, I talk about why communism or attempts to go to communism and socialism have failed. And there's 4 essential reasons. And read this post first, right? And then here. So the first and foremost is the tension within monetary systems. And that you go to this post here. Talk about the core problems with monetary systems and capitalism in general. The first being that the tension within methods of exchange, which leads to the destruction inherent to monetary systems, which ensures that competition, exploitation, corruption, and authoritarianism were going to happen. Full stop. But just trying to sell communism. I'm not trying to sell communism too. I'm not. It's important to have a historically, at least, somewhat correct understanding of why it failed. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not selling it to you. So the primary reason why it failed is, first, that money was still in existence. And money was a part of the thing. Money is inherently corruptive, and my tension with the method of exchange talks all about that. The economic benefit usually goes to those in charge and not to the people at large. This is perhaps the most important part to understand, and part of that makes failure of such attempts almost a foregone conclusion. Nope. Incorrect. It starts with money and the corruption, and you got in those almost a lot of the times that it was started, there was lots of poverty and inequality and that sort of thing. There's a lot of suffering, and with that, a lot of that suffering, that creates a lot of people who are corrupt. Well, you're the one who needs to understand here. And then the second reason why it failed was that they did not have the history and or values socioeconomic system to support such a transition. Attempting to switch from feudalism or a heavily capitalistic society, or one with high levels of inequality, directly into socialism or communism is very difficult because of the lack of eco-humanistic core values present in either. In order for your society to be ready for a transition like that, you need to have the values and history to support it. So the original attempts, China, Russia, why they failed, again, money was still there and they didn't have the values. With that being said, perhaps the only current socioeconomic system that might be able to successfully transition to socialism or communism, or even a resource-based economy, while avoiding the despairing falls into authoritarianism and corruption, would be democratic socialist country, because their policies tend to be quite strongly humanistic and environmental. In essence, that is what my political policies are aimed at. Proposed by Gorbachev. This is a very long line. Yeah, but again, you're playing into exactly the reasons what I'm talking about, why it failed. Again, did not have the technology is a big part of that. And the corruption is a large part of that, which you see here, right? Well, right, that's an infrastructure problem, and that's what I talk about here next, right? The third, they did not have the technology to accomplish a national scale planned economy like we do now. In today's world, we have the technology to be able to accomplish a national or global planned economy like there has never been in the past. They did not have computers, sensors data, factories, and other required technologies for mass manufacturing or automation, AI for big data processing. Yeah, so because they didn't have the technological infrastructure or technology needed to do a national scale planned economy, yeah, it was going to fail. Definitely. You look at what Bolivia with the CyberSyn project, which the United States following the beginning of that, staged a coup to stop that, right? So they didn't have the values, they didn't have the technology, and they still had monetary systems. So those three things are definitely made sure that all of those attempts were going to fail. Now, the last one, historically, for every time that communism, socialism has been tried, is the US's war on progress. Fourth is that the US absolutely destroys any country that tries to do good for their people by trying to shift to a new socioeconomic system, which may end up threatening the global dominance of capitalism and the US's hegemonic empire. The US is the greatest terrorist organization in the world and is engaged in coup after coup to stop any country attempting to end or shift away from capitalism. And there's a video here talking about it. Under communism, every man has what he needs. That's why the butcher sign put up nobody needs me today. Okay, why did communism fail? Sorry. I've already explained it all to you. This is my blog. This is my blog post. It's not a book. It should be a book someday. No, I have not. I really haven't read much about communism at all. Just the only time I've really done any reading is right here when I'm researching this post here on socialism and how we in this country, in the United States, talk about communism and socialism. So I want to get a basic understanding and explain to people, because when you say the word socialism, no one has a clue. Unless we know what you mean by socialism, we can't have an actual conversation. That book's appeared in the House. People here only drink vodka. Have these people seen the Scandinavian? Yeah, I know, right? I've been to Moscow and I've been to Belarus myself, so I get that. Don't get me wrong, they drink a lot of vodka, but there's also other stuff being drank too. I know, Worm. I know. Ignorance is what it is. So yeah, there are definitely reasons why they've all failed, and I covered the basics here. And again, why they're trying to go to market reforms? Because, well, they're corrupt. I mean, the corruption is there. They don't have the values, right? And once they have the values, then everything changes. Having the values is the big part, and that's what my policies are about here. 8 philosophical pillars for peace is about getting those right. Nope. All right, so I've got my blog post here. These are my policies. You can give them a read and kind of educate yourself a little bit more, and go from there. All right, so okay, so we'll read this paragraph again. Anyone who successfully sues an abortion provider under this law could be awarded at least $10,000. And to prepare for that, Texas Right to Life has set up what it calls a whistleblower website where people can submit anonymous tips about anyone they believe to be violating the law. These lawsuits are not against the women, says John Segal with Texas Right to Life. The lawsuits would be against the individuals making money off the abortion industry itself. So this is not spy on your neighbor to see if they're having an abortion. That's not what I've read. That's not what we've previously read. Okay. In a federal lawsuit challenged a coalition of abortion providers and reproductive rights groups said the law places a bounty on people who provide or aid abortions, inviting random strangers to sue them. Yeah, exactly. Here's why you're running. Okay, dude. All right, calm down. Cottonmouth, you're just being annoying at this point. Pretty please. What does the law mean for patients and abortion providers? Dr. Bhavik Kumar, a family medicine doctor who works for Planned Parenthood, said in Houston, Planned Parenthood in Houston says the law creating a lot of uncertainty for patients and providers, but Kumar insists he will comply. Have we read this already? No, we haven't. I know there are many people who don't have the ability to make it out of the state. The logistics and ability to do so is not an option for them, he said. So I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to people. I'm okay with that, Cottonmouth. It's not the quantity, it's the quality that matter. That's fine. Let's see. Dr. Ghazala Moyeda, an OBGYN, told NPR over the weekend that patients are apprehensive. They understand that the abortion that they're having this week, last week, the week before, is something that they would be able to have next week. They've been asking about it and asking, if I were here in September, would I be able to get this? What does this mean for abortion laws in other states? If the federal courts ultimately allow this law to stand, it's very likely that other conservative states will move to pass similar laws. Siegel with Texas Right to Life said his organization is working with activists in multiple states who are eager to replicate this model if it succeeds in blocking access to most abortions in Texas. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. If this is successful, it'll definitely be copied and it will be taken to all the other conservative states and people's lives will be destroyed because that's what conservatives do. They destroy lives for fun and profit. Well, just actual fun, actually. It's still a bit untested. We're still working on what these laws are going to look like if the industry decides to break the law, Siegel said. So it is a new model, and we're still testing it out. Hopefully they don't get that chance, right? What happens next? Multiple court challenges to the law are underway, including several lawsuits in state court in Texas targeting anti-abortion rights groups, including Texas Right to Life. Honestly, a lot of facts about the USR were not true and was just propaganda. Yeah, USR still sucks, but something was super overreacting. This dude mainly show us his pace with his anecdotes. Yeah, I know it's just the blind bias towards it and not actually investigating what Marx and Engels actually wrote and how it actually turned out. Don't get me wrong, the USSR. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. No arguing that. Okay. Even still, like going into Belarus, you've probably gone through this as well. Like they had centrally controlled hot water, still heating some of the large, communist era flats. And they would have to turn off the water for a week, the hot water for a week to do maintenance every single year or something strange like that. I mean, that's annoying. It's the only thing I can really think of about that. Okay, so it's not okay. Good, yeah. And just like when my wife was going to get a new passport, oh my God, it was a fucking week of bullshit. It was a week of going here, getting this signature, get that stamp, get this piece of paper, and all that sort of thing. I mean, it was so fucking ridiculous. All the bullshit you have to go through just to do one thing. It's controlling people and cowing them into submission just to make sure that they can. Yeah, no, I believe it. I believe it. Okay, so I'm actually not going to start reading this because I don't have time. I've got 2 minutes left. Maybe we'll get to this next time. Any other comments before we call this a day? We've got 2 minutes. Talk about anything. So I've got tomorrow off, so I'll probably end up spending a bunch of time. Actually, yeah, if you want, I've on YouTube, my YouTube channel, I have recorded some gameplay of Warhammer 40k Battle Sector. It has exactly 19 missions. Oh, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. In Q we trust. Yikes. Yikes. Glad to have you, I guess. I guess we'll see. Yeah, so I have some gameplay of Battle Sector. The worst postal service is Russian, slow, bad, and just sucks. Could be. Ours is getting bad too because a conservative was put in charge during Trump's administration, and he was literally ripping mailboxes out of the ground and stuff like that. So I don't know. Yours probably is worse, but ours is starting to try to keep up with just how bad your Russia's is. Hopefully we'll get rid of DeJoy sometime soon, and then we can get a real get someone in charge who actually cares about providing postal service. All right, so if we've reached our 2 hours here, we're going to any last comments before we call today? There's some videos about FedEx. Yeah. FedEx is a little different. It's USPS is the one that's the government one. FedEx is a little bit different. It's a private one, but yeah, they've got. Hopefully, they weren't affected. They're just fuck it. I bet it's all fucked up over here. Yeah, USPS. Okay, there's UPS, and then there's USPS. United States Parcel Service and United Parcel Service, I think. Right? Let's go over here. Okay, this is UPS, United Parcel Service, right? Right. Yeah, United Parcel Service, then USPS. Yeah, United States Parcel Service. Then, of course, FedEx and all the other ones. Like the German one? Okay. That's, which one's that? German. There's like DHL. Oh, that's another one. There's a lot of them out there. All right, so my peeps, we've reached the yeah, DHL. Okay, yep. All right, we've reached our 2 hours. So again, if you like what you hear here, please go ahead and follow me. I stream on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., Thursdays at 5 p.m., and 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and Saturdays 3 p.m. U.S. Central as well. And if you go to my About area on Twitch, you've got my links to my blog and Discord and all that sort of stuff, and Patreon as well. If you want to throw money at me, that would be appreciated too. All that stuff is there. Yeah, Worm, you have a great week and weekend, and we'll see you guys later on Saturday. Have a great week. Bye.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue.